Welcome to the Course Creators Podcast with course design expert Jenny Rice. Whether you're an experienced creator or just starting out, this podcast helps build courses that resonate, transform, and make an impact. Each episode, we'll explore strategies and tips to help you create engaging, successful courses. Let's dive in.
Hi, welcome. This is Jenny Rice from Course Creators Podcast. I'm so excited about our guest today. We have Steve Balke, consultant, trainer, and coach. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Jenny. Welcome. And welcome. Great to be here. I'm excited for this opportunity, and I really appreciate the conversations that we've had and the opportunity to go and perhaps encourage someone to dive deeper into lifelong learning.
That's great. That's great. Really inspiring. So why don't we start with, tell me a bit about yourself and your background, because I know you have a really rich background and experience.
So in 1998, I went out and I achieved what is called the Microsoft Certified Trainer certification. So in order to do this, you have to be certified in one of their products, and then you become a trainer. That allowed me to go into the training spectrum. I was already consulting on computers, so that wasn't, it's one of those things. If you can't do it, then you train it. Well, in order to do that in certification programs, you actually have to do it first, and then you can become a trainer in it and learn the training techniques. That was a great experience and a great launch platform, because I taught around the country at several different learning centers, the Microsoft curriculum, the CompTIA curriculum. You might have heard of A+, if you are anywhere near the tech spectrum, A+, Network Plus, etc. from CompTIA, the Cisco routing platform, and eventually the Oracle platform. After that period, I went and taught at the University of New Mexico in the continuing education division. And there I was actually allowed to expand, because at that point in 2003, the certifications were becoming a little bit less. So there was more of the formal education environment, but there was a gap being created in people being able to do things. So what my reaction to this as a program manager and also an instructor at UNM was to go out and find out what people needed. And that culminated into me becoming not a program manager, but a facilitator. What do I mean by that? I facilitated, and as far as I know, I was the first one to do so. I facilitated agency agreements within the state of New Mexico to go and address a need. For instance, the hospital inpatient discharge data being transferred from an Oracle platform to a Microsoft platform. I utilized instructor capabilities and student aspirations in order to make an agreement that was really good for the state of New Mexico and good for continuing education as well, because it was self-funded. So we brought in the consulting dollars as a part of a training package, which any project manager will tell you that when you're running a project, you have the ramp up, the preparation, and that should be 40 to 50% of the total project time and cost. Then you have the training and implementation. In other words, the adoption by the end users. And that's 40 to 50%. The work in between, which takes a lot of time and preparation, is only like 10% of the project. So this was a perfect mix, and it was pretty successful. We did the state of New Mexico website. We did the hospital inpatient discharge data. I worked with other organizations like the VA medical system. They have a research arm. We did their SharePoint for interactive communications and reporting. We did a lot of really cool projects and were able to take them to the next level. While I was at UNM, I also got Achieve Global certified, which most people probably haven't heard of, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have heard the name Zig Ziglar. And
Mm-hmm.
Achieve Global bought all of their content and from Zig Ziglar and branded it. So that was my official introduction to leadership, customer service, etc. Though I will say that Stephen Covey has always been a part of every class I teach, just kind of like pop culture. Stephen Covey is a good underlying fundamental.
He's got great content.
how to it's a meta application that's good for anything. It's good for how to plan and how to interact with a tech team, just as good as it is for planning and interacting with a not-for-profit organization. Midway through my UNM experience, I started working with nonprofits, and I did that quite a bit. And this is where the Achieve Global kind of meets the Covey, kind of meets the, hey, leadership and actual civil discourse. People don't know how important it is to be able to sit in a meeting and actually share ideas. People have become very used to, well, I need to make my point. Well, that's great. It really is. And you're not always going to find agreement. And you have to be able to acclimatize yourself to the point where you are able to agree to disagree. And now that we've got that boxed, and we can put it on a shelf and say, we're here to do something. Another influence on that is about 12. I started in the National Association of Parliamentarians. So that plays in a lot because I'm actually currently president of the State Association of Parliamentarians under NAP. So that plays a large part. So once you've got, this is how we treat people, you know, there's a large portion of people are people, and you lead people and you manage things. And when you're managing people, you're treating them like things. And the disassociation in our society is getting pretty out there. And so if I were to go and retrace and say, well, I should have, no, because the migration from tech to people has made it so that I'm actually better at implementing high tech with high touch. And I'm coining that phrase from a guy by the name of Casey Latham, who I learned from that experience that a lot of people go through that they don't ever want to admit to. It's, you know, multi-level marketing, selling. But that actually taught me a lot, because it's more like the not-for-profit environment. It's where you go in and you try to teach people. And you're in not-for-profit, it's an interesting environment, because you're not only teaching people how to lead, and you need to actually lead in not-for-profit, because people vote with their feet. If you've got volunteers, the worst thing you can do is make it so that they don't want to go. So you have to align your goals and your trajectories with what they are already motivated to do. And some people can say, well, you're making it so that it's their idea. You know, there's a lot of different ways to couch it, but people coming to their own realizations should be the objective of every learning environment. And the only way you can do that is if they can take it in. Mm-hmm. So this road that I traversed has brought me to the point where I'm focused on, am I getting through? Do I see the light bulb that appears over somebody's head in my imagination? When they get it and can apply it. I love when people say knowledge is not power. Knowledge applied is power.
Yeah, I love that statement.
It's not about whether or not you know something. It's
It's
about
what you
whether
do with it. It's what you do with it. Yeah. I believe people are buying transformation, not information, right? Because you have information, it's what you do with it that matters, right?
it does.
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
What a rich background you've had. It's amazing on how your path is taking to where you are today, and all those experiences have contributed to you being the person you are today, and the value you provide to your learners and your clients, which is wonderful. So, why
Thank
don't you
you.
tell me a little bit more about the courses you're offering now and the transformation you provide? Because I know we talked before, and you have some really course content out there.
We do. Within a not-for-profit, I was part of a team that has developed and brought new focus on a set of courses for leadership. I first took the training, funny enough, back in 12, and it was very targeted toward a specific segment of our organizations and very biased in some regards. And we talked about it. It's masonry, and that is a men's only organization. Well, it is, and that's great. Leadership works for everybody. There are things that you should know. There's some things that I've been learning from, and I'm fairly sure that you've heard the name Jim Quick before, but Jim Quick is a memory expert. He breathes memory, and he brought the and I'm very sad to say I can't remember her name, but she is a doctor that talks about fasting, and there are differences between your audiences, and if you don't keep that in mind, and let me be clear, when I say audience, I could be talking about your and my conversation. You're my audience and I'm your audience. When you talk about training, you have the audience that's in front of you in instructor-led training, the audience that's in front of you in virtual instructor-led training. Then you have the unknown audience when you're doing an online course that is asynchronously provided.
Right.
So they can log on whenever they want to. You're pre-recorded. Are you capturing your audience?
Absolutely.
Are you getting to them and giving them something that they didn't have before?
Right. And it's about transferring the knowledge, but not the knowledge. It's about how do I transfer the knowledge and then apply it and adopt it and integrate it. I'm so behind you with that model about experience-based training because again, information in your brain doesn't do anything if you don't take action with it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And funny enough, we can talk, and I'm sure that we could talk long about how COVID was not our favorite time, but it did do something for our program, because what we did in the program is we separated the body of knowledge into, and I used when we talked, I used the example of piano. You've got theory so that you learn how to write the notes and how to put them on a score, etc. And then you've got application, actually playing. What we did with the program is we adopted that model. We took the theory of we took the theories behind the way that you act with yourself as a leader, the way that you act in a group as a leader, and the way that you can be influential, intentionally influential with your communication habits. And we took those bodies of knowledge and we separated them into 2 courses each. So we had the theory, which we are fine offering online. And again, we're using virtual instructor led. So this is contact based over the virtual platform, the same as you and I are doing right now. But it's the theory, and that allows for the gaps that are inherent to this environment. When you talk about communication, 57% of it is nonverbal communication. You're left with like this little tiny sliver that's the actual words you're using.
Absolutely.
So when you are breaking into that necessarily, because you're in Canada and I'm in New Mexico, you are going to affect the communication. So we left it to the theory online, and then our courses in person were they were new courses, and they've been brought about to make the vast majority of the training experience not a lecture. We talk for 5 minutes about something, and then
go do it. Yeah.
Go do it. And funny enough, we were doing this at conferences, and we've had several projects that have come out of this training where people get together and go and execute a project that was never on the board across jurisdictions or to everybody else's interpretation, state lines. So the guys from Missouri and Kansas and Oklahoma got together and did a project just because they came to the class, and we sat them in a group at a table and said, come up with something. Well, they did. And then they went and did it. So that's powerful.
Absolutely.
That's not, hey, I learned this thing and I got the buzzwords from this class.
It's what do I do with it and how do I integrate it into my life? I use the example of a surgeon. I say, would you want a surgeon to operate on you that just watched the videos, observed and things like that, or somebody who's actually practiced it, right? Because it's about skills and knowledge, right? There's knowledge and then there's skills and how you apply it and how you adopt it into your life. So wonderful. It sounds like a great impact, because I love that you do the sort of the flipped classroom, the theory ahead of time, and then how do I apply that, integrate that, and learn that when you're in person. And it's great you have that, because you can see where people are learning. It's not like blind behind a screen, like you said, with online learning. You get the benefit of that interface with them, seeing them face to face in person, right? So
absolutely.
Wonderful. So any challenges that you faced in your course creation, and how did you overcome them?
Yes, there are plenty, and one of the biggest challenges that we're actually in the middle of overcoming, and we haven't decided exactly how to do it. But one of the biggest challenges that we faced is our program has been set up to go to a department conference or a regional conference and give a course. And then once you've finished with that course, you can take the next course. That's great. But what it does not do is it doesn't say, how are you practicing what you learned, taking it to your organizations and implementing it? We're actually looking at, over time, putting up the courses that are in such a way that they are 1.5 hour sessions. Now go apply it. Now tell us how you applied it. Now tell us how you taught somebody else how to apply it. That's a great thing. And then let's move on to the next segment. In other words, one of the recent pronouncements, it started in 1996, I believe, is gamification. And the power of gamification is, and this is actually what I am personally working on, is developing a platform for leadership that involves gamification. And the reason is because of contact. If people see a consistent, it goes back to the motivations. If people see a consistent feedback, that dopamine drip,
dopamine for sure,
then you're getting their biochemistry involved, and it's going to be positive because they want to succeed. And you're putting different perspectives on the same information that give them that actually utilize their internal motivating factors. It'll astound most people. But if you ever get into the gamification genre or study or whatnot, then what you're going to find is World of Warcraft has actually been around for longer than we have. Let me put that differently. More hours have been spent on playing World of Warcraft than we have evidence of human existence.
Wow. That's a very intense information.
It really is. And it's compounding because people play World of Warcraft. Does that mean everybody should run out and play World of Warcraft? No, it doesn't. What it should tell us, it's empirical evidence. People choose to spend their time playing this game
Because they get the dopamine impact.
because it's
Feels
got the
good.
dopamine impact. Now, as instructors, what we should say is, yes, dopamine, great. Oxytocin, we don't have so much access to. That's okay. That's family life. But where do we put the serotonin in? How can we facilitate the serotonin? And a real good way of looking at this is dopamine is, I can take on the world. It's an instant now. And then it kind of trails off. Serotonin is high, stable confidence. It's, yeah, we can do this.
I get it. Yeah.
So we have the opportunity, and gamification, we have the opportunity to at least contribute so that we are focused on that. But when we talk about gamification, then we can talk about actually addressing that, because there's short, medium, and long-term stimulus within a gamification environment that's structured properly that addresses those. And then we can make content so that people are excited. You know, we think in pictures and we energize with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you facilitate that with accomplishment, I was watching something the other day and they were talking about happiness versus accomplishment. Happiness is the dopamine drip, and accomplishment is the stable serotonin. When you start doing that, and I know this has been a long wandering path, but when you accomplish both, you are actually facilitating people's growth, I believe.
Yeah. And there's a magic recipe of being able to enable them all so that people experience it, they enjoy it, they integrate it, they retain it, and then they apply it. And then they have that long-term impact, right? So wonderful. And you've got all the components of it. It's now taking that concept and putting that into training that makes an impact. And it's not as easy as it seems, but it's important to be aware of as you're designing and creating training, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Really good insight. You're a great storyteller too about putting all the pieces together and seeing the big picture. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as we end our podcast, do you have any other tips for other course creators?
You are a leader. Leaders lead by alignment and excitement.
Okay.
If you try to, and again, this is back to the death by PowerPoint, if you try to relate information to people, Bueller, it doesn't work.
No.
They will adopt Charlie Brown's position in the classroom, and all they'll hear is wah, 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 wah. If you're excited about it, that's a good start. If you know your audience and you align with what motivates them and what they can use. And quite honestly, I did this to where one of my managers got upset with me because I'd spend the whole morning talking to people, but I knew exactly what they wanted to get out of it. I knew what they wanted to accomplish from being there, from spending their time with me, and I was able to address it. If you know your audience and you're excited, you're going to do a lot better. And then, you actually during this interview, you've rattled off some really good cornerstone aspects of lists that we should have just absolutely readily available that say, we're going to make sure it does this. We're going to make sure it does this. We're going to make sure it does this. We're going to make sure it does this.
Yep.
Have those lists available, get excited, and know your audience, and you're going to find successful training is just that.
Yeah, what a great combination of it, because your passion, your authenticity shows up in what you're doing for sure. And life is too short not to spend time doing something you enjoy and it makes an impact for sure, right? And then knowing your audience, I know so many people that work with course creators or they're course creators and they're like, I think they want this, or I think I want to hear this, versus what really does my audience need to hear and how do they need to hear it? So they have that dopamine, that serotonin, that whole big picture effect, and go back and apply it. And it's taking away from your own thinking what you want and thinking of what that audience wants. I use the analogy of you're a race car driver, but you're teaching people how to drive a car. So don't always look at it from your perspective, look at it from their perspective. What do they need to know to learn, to do, and apply effectively? And then you're going to meet that sweet spot of impacting them, right?
Absolutely. Your experience is a facilitator to the knowledge. It isn't the knowledge. It's your perspective on the knowledge and your experience. And that has enormous value.
Yep.
But they're not necessarily going to have the same experience. And if it's based all on you, it might hit your hit or miss.
Yep.
If it's based on them, you're hitting.
Right. I love it. Love it. Right. What a great way to end this podcast. Yeah. You've been a great guest. I've learned so much from you. So thank you for that. And I think
Thank you,
our
Jenny.
listeners will too. So this is Jenny Rice with Course Creators Podcast, and my very special guest today, Steve Balke. He's a consultant, trainer, and coach, and so much more. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks for listening to the Course Creators Podcast. For more insights and to connect with a community of creators, join our Course Creator channel on The Great Discovery. We offer both free and premium memberships. Check the link below. Until next time, keep creating, inspiring, and transforming lives.